Welcome to the Lockdown Podcast. We've got movies, we've got TV shows, we've got inane banter. They've stopped making new stuff, so we've gone back to old stuff. We haven't run out of food yet, but we almost certainly will. Certain death. Spend the rest of your life as you lived, consuming meaningless noise. Donate to our Patreon, or our children will be Patreon. And blood on your hands. End of days, Bunker Cast.
So this is not the Check for Traps podcast, this is the Coronavirus Plague Lockdown podcast, and today we're reviewing a movie that apparently inspired Mad Max. It is definitely going to be one of the least viewed podcasts we've ever put out there. I guess now
How low can you go?
It's a pretty competitive fucking...
Can we get less than 4 views?
Joining us today, we have Reuben.
Hello.
Aaron.
Howdy.
We have Alec.
Hello.
And special guest hostage, Billy Ash.
Good evening.
Fantastic.
Bunker's getting mighty full.
This was the... it's getting awfully hot in here. We might have to start having sex. So this one was suggested by Reuben.
I regret everything. Don't hang me out to dry like that.
Was it's getting hot, we have to have sex, the moral of R. Kelly's It's Getting Hot in Here?
I believe
And
so.
this film.
We need a jug of hot piss from R. Kelly.
Was it R. Kelly?
That was R. Kelly.
Yeah.
This was one of the most disturbing movies I've seen for ages. In that I don't understand what the point was, but there were enough things in it that made me sure that there was some kind of point. There was a telepathic dog, there was a barter system involving food in exchange for rape, and there was a weird microcosm community under the ground after the nuclear war. Oh yeah, there was also nuclear war. It is Reuben's favourite film, despite what the fact is saying.
Oh, fuck off. I'm not sure we've actually even said the title of the film yet, have we?
It's
It was
called
called
The
The Boy
Boy
and
and
His
His
Dog.
It's actually the only film Reuben owns on Blu-ray.
I was actually thinking that a remake of this where you have a person playing the dog would be pretty funny. Like in
So
like
The
a
remake
dog
I
suit.
would make would be me as the boy and an apple as the dog.
A telepathic apple.
A telepathic apple.
Does it have googly eyes on it?
Maybe the apple could also be the woman, so I could make love to it.
Would that be a second apple or the same apple?
Aaron, in your version, so it's just a boy and another boy.
Well, no. So it's a boy, and then there is a the for the purposes of the film, the other boy is a dog, but he is just a man wearing a dog outfit. I'd also like it to be like a really old haggard man as well. Actually, I think that'd be really funny.
Ed Harris?
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Ed Harris is a
Like
good
Sam
one.
Neill or like Sam Elliott.
Personally, I'd go for Mark Strong, because I feel like he'd have a very sober and reassuring tone.
On the right year at the Academy Awards, you could probably spin the telepathic dog film played by a guy in a dog suit into a victory.
I know that it's a bit obvious, but I'm going for Harrison Ford on all fours being the dog that finds me women to have sex with. That would be my version of the film.
It'd be so miserable.
I'd like it to
quite
be
like
Dog
a
the Bounty
jowly
Hunter
face,
to
yeah.
I was going to
fulfill
say,
his role.
not only did he was in Call of the Wild, which is really the spiritual successor to this film, I imagine,
Yes.
having not seen it. He also played a dog in The Secret Life of Pets 2. He's been prepping for this role all his life.
I would choose...
If anyone is wondering why we're having so much trouble staying on topic, it's
We don't
because
wanna
this is
talk
one of
about
the most baffling. Yeah, no, it's one of the most baffling and nightmarish movies I've ever seen.
If we were to just summarise the plot, begins with a man who's desperate to find food but also women, using his telepathic pimp dog that can scan the area with some kind of sonar ability
Literally
And-
makes a sonar sound effect as well. That's important.
as he's looking for women to sex up. And then he finds a woman at an outdoor cinema which exists in the post-apocalypse for some reason,
Yep.
which he pays to enter by trading a can of beetroots. And then he sees a woman there who he then goes into a bunker and rapes her.
Tries
No,
to...
don't-
And then
Attempt, please, attempt-
he
attempts
tries to
to.
rape her, that's true. He attempts to rape her, but then she immediately falls in love with him for some
They
reason.
get interrupted by other rapists.
Yeah,
So
there's a big shootout. There's a dog fight which definitely was not staged in any way. They just make two dogs fight.
Oh, that was sad. That,
Well,
in fact,
I-
that may have even been more sad than the sexual politics of this.
Yeah.
I agree.
it
I
was-
think because the sexual politics can be staged, and
Also,
that
the
the dogfight was way more jarring for me.
Also,
as a
like,
viewer.
she doesn't actually fall in love with him. Like, she does just pretend. So in
yeah,
that,
it's for a
in
bit.
that capacity, I mean, again, like I get that in that moment it was shocking to us, but like it was eventually, like, it was thinking ahead.
but revealed to
Yeah,
be a
exactly.
ruse.
Which
yeah,
I
that's
rate
true.
it for. I mean, and again, like, it was quite shocking. It was like, oh, that's really weird. And I bet that I have to hope that was weird to 70s audiences as well. I've got no
who
idea.
knows?
I mean, obviously the
So,
cinema's full of
under
smoke.
the guise-
Everyone was probably a minute away from hitting their wife, but hopefully it was shocking. Like,
They go through a security door using a key card to an underground utopia, which is just 1970s America, but everyone has clown makeup on, where they use this man to farm sperm using a giant pump we have referred to as the spum pump or the spump.
Do you want my interesting facts about the spump now?
Give me the
Fire
spump
away.
fact. Go on.
Absolutely.
Spray it all
It's
over
the,
it.
it's real. It's called electroejaculation, and it's a real technique used to harvest semen.
What scenarios do you need to harvest semen?
I believe it's mainly used for livestock that you want to
thank
breed.
God.
So say like stud horsing or cattle or sheep. I don't think it was supposed to be used on humans. Maybe you got real bad erectile dysfunction. You want to pass on your genealogy. Maybe they hook you up to the spump. I got no idea.
I think that's the actual pump, because that's just like sticking a vibrator. Because people do that you can do that with a finger if you're good.
Yeah, do anyone remember?
Well, surely you can't do the electro part of electroejaculation with a finger.
The
Well,
BME
if you
Pain
Google search
Olympics.
electroejaculation, the first Google image result is a drawing of a mouse with a little vibrator up its arse. You don't see the penis to pump contact because they're cowards, but you see a little vial slowly.
Oh, so
filling
you're
up
saying it
and
might be two separate devices, like it's the electroejaculator and then the spump.
yeah, like because how are they getting?
But then the spump
sperm
isn't actually
from
is only
penis to
receiving
vial?
sperm. It's not actually pumping it out of him. He is ejaculating and then it is just sucking it out.
It's just like a Hoover.
Welcome to Check for Traps for all the really important dialectics.
Yeah,
suck.
my God.
This is the longest conversation anyone's ever had about this film, including the conversations had by the people who made it.
There's also
It's just very
there's something
odd.
called the transrectal electroejaculation probe, or the TREE, or TREEP. And also,
Subscribe for more spum facts
there's also
from
the
from Aaron
erectal
Chapman.
electroejaculation probe, or the RE, which I think we can all agree is the
Ree?
first tree.
I can understand using it for balls and stuff like that.
Well, I was going to say the spum pump didn't really come to me as a surprise because in our more edgier teenage years, I did look up the Encyclopedia Dramatica's offended page and came across the BME Pain Olympics.
I thought you were going to say in your teenage years you used to have your semen extracted from your body using a spump.
I won't disclose any further information on that without a Patreon donation.
Entirely
Like
reasonable.
and subscribe.
Keep that behind a
for more
paywall, Will.
spum.
Don't give it to them for free.
I'd like to take this opportunity to remind any maniac who might be listening that we are still discussing the movie that went on to inspire George Miller to make the Mad Max franchise.
And Fallout.
And the
It made-
Fallout
yeah.
video game franchise,
Bloody
apparently.
Black Oasis Studios, or whatever they're called, looked at this and were like, we should make video games about this.
Yeah.
But also,
Do you want to make one of the best franchises ever? Yeah, why not? Spump.
it was a weird time.
So, after he's having his penis extracted using the spump, he decides he just doesn't enjoy that. He's forcibly married to every single woman, like 35 women or
32,
something.
wasn't it?
I thought it was
32
35.
women. Thanks you.
35.
Thanks, Will. Very
35.
It
vital.
was 35.
Oh, 35.
35.
Okay,
I will,
right.
I will
He
go
only
to the
managed
mat
to
over
do
this.
10.
Unthank you. Unthank you, Will.
I
Shame on
apologise
you.
wholeheartedly to
You're
our dear
drunk on
audience.
spum.
Sorry.
The girl he previously attempted to rape, but then she befriended him for her own personal gain, befriends him again for her own personal gain, and tries to get him to assassinate council, the
right?
committee, thank you, that run this bizarre spunping operation. He's like, no bitch, you got your own problems. But then they get chased by a robotic farmer who he tries to kill, kind of succeeds, and then they escape back through the door somehow.
How they developed this like android technology in the post-apocalypse is not commented upon.
Nor is the fact that his dog is telepathic. And he goes back outside the door, back up to the real world on the surface again, where everything's a kind of a shithole, but really it's just a desert in Arizona somewhere. And his dog's a bit sad on the ground. And then to make his dog less sad, they eat the woman that he tried to sexually assault. The end.
And that was a boy and his dog.
So I mean, in defense of the final quandary, I do quite like what they set up, where like she clearly wants her she's like trying to manipulate him. She's trying to like play him off in the really like lazy and really like ham-fisted way. And then once it's been clear that they've been sort of Adam and Eve kicked out of paradise, she's like, "Don't you love me?" But then equally like just everyone's so fucking vile, even the people with like a pretense of civilization.
Do you think that's the message then? That if there is a message, that the message is just all humans are shit, even the ones that you think are good?
I think it's more like the people living in luxury and the people living in the desert are equally shitty.
We're all no better than a telepathic dog.
it's not attempting to sprout hope, is it? Like in Mad Max, he meets awful people, but he also meets quite kind-spirited people, whereas in this series, it does seem like everyone is entirely focused around their own paradigm, whereas the only person, or shall I say sentient being, who actually expresses any affection is the very maladapted telepathic dog.
I mean,
This
the
is the
dog
problem
incites a bit of rape as well. I mean, he's by no means a
I mean, he
nice
facilitates
dog.
it. I mean, does he incite it?
He's like a pimp, isn't he?
He
Well,
does
he
refer
actively
to
is like, oh, you
himself.
go out and get some sex.
He refers to himself as a female provider.
Tin of
See,
beans, and that dog will hook you right up.
Yeah,
It's also worth noting at this point that when that dog was given a chance to expound on the character of the one female in the movie, he was himself a virulent misogynist.
Put aside the bizarre, twisted plot, what do you think about the rest of the film? Like,
There was a lot of drawn out scenes, and I don't believe it was for artistic reasons. I think there was if you
Agreed.
can't make a hour and a half film, then don't make an hour and a half film. But
Sure.
a long shot in the weird factory. But there was the same when he was looking in the cinema. I did actually like the cinema, and I liked the fact he traded a tin of beetroot, because a cinema is still like would be quite a luxury service, and food is obviously like the one barter item you'd reasonably have.
especially
Didn't mean it
without
wasn't
watching a
fucking boring,
pornographic
though.
snuff film as well in the cinema.
I mean, it felt sort of a bit, what's the word? I guess, like, experimental is the wrong word, but it did feel like it was doing something that clearly was in its infancy. And I
Punk rock.
don't believe that without this film I would have got like things like Tank Girl, and as we said, apparently wouldn't have even got Mad Max. I give it its props. Like, I'm glad it exists, really glad it exists. But especially fucking, like, think about the amount of time we probably collectively playing Fallout. Jesus
Very
Christ.
true.
We owe this film a debt, god damn it.
Can't
That
believe
is
it.
true.
It makes me feel a bit dirty, though, if
No.
anything, about all those things, because I feel like now I don't feel inspired to do anything other than to sit in the fetal position in the shower and
But
cry.
think, Reuben, it inspired those other people to say, I'll take what works, I'll take what I found really cool, I'll iron out all the rape, and then I'll move on from there. And I think that's fucking great.
If
well,
you,
Mad Max
it's,
just kind of took like, what if it was the apocalypse, and that was about it, and then Fallout took out the what if it was the apocalypse, but also the 50s.
Yeah, is that well? And also, people lived
Yes.
underground. I don't know. I think Mad Max definitely took a couple of the vibes. Like, it took sort of like the. I mean, the only difference is that the protagonist in this film became the antagonist in Mad Max.
There's a lot of sexual violence in Mad Max as well,
Yeah.
but in this it was way too pivotal and
It was just normalized, wasn't it? I think that's the.
normalized is the word. No one looks down on it whatsoever, not even the victim.
But do we need
which
to?
is
Do we need them to? I
fucking
mean,
disturbing.
we all agree that it's terrible. But like, this is the post-apocalypse, and it was a satire, a black comedy about how fucking shit people are.
I don't think it makes a very interesting story.
No, I agree, it doesn't make
Here's
it-
a man
it does
with
make a very
telepathic
interesting
dog,
story.
which he only uses to find people to rape.
No, I agree.
It's like, okay, cool. Now what? Oh, he's gonna go find someone else to rape.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
sweet,
didn't
awesome.
care for
But
I
that.
noticed-
that would be the same the other way around if it was just a dog constantly moralizing him about why he shouldn't rape.
Well,
If
but
you
then-
ever just do like a 2D depiction of something, which this did, then it will be boring.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I think I'm kind of on Alex's side. I think the point isn't so much the depiction or the fact that they didn't say this is bad in the movie, but it's just I don't really understand why that was the main motivator, like that was the driving force of all of the characters'
Oh yeah,
actions.
it was just because it was supposed to be edgy petulance, I think.
If I might interject with just an opinion. Boy,
No,
Facts only.
both vetoed. You got to be rude.
Shut him off.
No, go on.
Don Johnson's character is shown to be born of that age, grown up without an education, and I'm not saying this was a conscious decision by the production house or the
Yeah.
director, but what I think it does show is how easy it is to go from this artificial moral code into what if we weren't taught any morals?
Well, he's taught by a dog,
he's
which
reverted-
could
but again, a
just be
dog-
a figment of his imagination.
A dog probably not a good vessel to carry the knowledge of Western
Yeah.
civilization. To the next
literally raised
generation.
by wolves.
But I again, yeah, I get what you're going for. I quite like that because yeah, he is just a complete animal and can't be judged by our societal
he's
conditions.
Do you think that the writers thought about that, or
I think
Probably not.
I think Harlan
Yeah.
Ellison did. I'm going out there. I think the guy who wrote the book is a man called Harlan Ellison. He's weird and he's kind of fantastic. I think he fully thought about that. I guess as well, like if we try and place it in its time period, what this is 2-3 years before Star Wars comes out. This was probably pretty unique.
Probably quite exciting as well, considering that how pornography wasn't available, and we know that everyone back then was already a rapist. So
Wasn't it the 70s when they had porn theatres, though?
Yeah, I thought
what,
it was
you're,
quite
you're,
prevalent.
You're absolutely
No,
right.
I'm saying
so
it's sort of like
I'm an
a
idiot.
mainstream
Well, no,
action
no.
thing. Though apparently the critics loved it.
When was
There's literally only one other thing that I wanted to say about this movie, and that's that given how big a deal it is that there was an underground society that seemed to have resources that the top side didn't have, that only happened 36 minutes before the end of the movie. That was like a really, really weird time to have that development.
You could tell as well, like the underground subplot is resolved incredibly quickly.
I feel nothing but emptiness.
Yeah.
I'm finished. I've seen too much attempted sexual assault, too many randy dogs, and one act of implied cannibalism.
But at least they kept the cannibalism tastefully off camera.
That's true.
Did you not enjoy everyone being in whiteface?
No, I was just like, oh, cool. Now they're clowns, I guess.
The things that were a bit were edgy and weird didn't seem to make any sense whatsoever, and not in a good way where it's like, oh, that's unexplained and mysterious.
Yeah.
It was just
No,
like,
you're
well,
right.
someone's done it for the sake of
The
it.
clown might be a good sort of piece of iconography for how pointless any of its edge was.
Just why the clown face, and why isn't it enforced to a standard?
It's true, because I guess the reason they never put him in clown face, because he seemed to be the only one without clown face. Presumably it was just because he wasn't going to be alive long enough to warrant wasting precious clown makeup on him.
You asked how their economy works. I reckon it's all
Clown face.
clown makeup
Because
supply.
Also, apparently, in the book, it is an artificial biosphere that nourishes the plants. So it's like recycled water.
That makes so much sense.
I mean, it doesn't really, because I still don't know where the light comes from in the artificial biosphere.
Yeah,
or at least
what's powering
it
all
wasn't
this shit?
in the
They just floodlighting everywhere.
Well, I guess if you spend enough time in the
Powered by
dark, your
God.
eyes adapt, don't
mole
they?
people.
The mole people.
So, for me, my closing statement would be, if you want to go and watch a gritty post-apocalyptic film, go and watch Mad Max 2: Road Warrior.
I would add to that to make sure that before, during, and afterwards you wash your hands.
I want to watch everything about me after watching this.
My closing...
Get me the big mop from 12 Monkeys.
Get the ass mop.
Yeah, the butt mop.
If you're interested in what inspired Mad Max and the Fallout games, and go watch it. Otherwise, if you're a degenerate who gets off on people being raped and still doesn't want to break the law...
I just thought it was dog shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
I mean, it's just like there were these little moments of like, oh, we've cobbled together something vaguely interesting. Like, here's some sort of warlord with a leopard print bicorn hat. You're like, okay, and then it's just goes on forever. Here's some fun wire work, but we've left the wires in, and it's just, oh, fair enough. It's the 70s. It's like, okay, we get it. Like, and it's a scene where he watching the porn film, and then the dog goes, "There's a woman," and then we get such a long shot of him slowly walking around after this woman.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is this? Please get to the point. And then they get to the point, and you wish they'd never bothered.
He is right. We've tried our best to make a velvet purse out of a pig's ear, but the movie was garbage.
It was worth trying to defend.
When Aaron was reading off the list of everything it inspired, I was baffled.
Yeah, I guess again, I guess the problem is, if you're in the 70s and no one's done anything, then even something like this can probably still kick you off and be like, that's a sick idea. I think that's probably what they did. He was like, man, this is fucking... I could make a much better version of this. Obviously, you can't really say that to, on the interview. It's like, man, I watched this film once, it was shit, but boy, did it inspire me to make Mad Max.
I could steal it and no one would be annoyed at me.
Apologies for suggesting this.
Right, well...
Purely by the blurb. Next time, one of you guys please pick the film.
Because a Wikipedia entry basically describes it as a man roams the desert with his dog that locates women for him to rape. And I was just like, wow, this is an interesting choice.
Wikipedia wasn't far wrong.
Alright, we're going to put Reuben in the 12 Monkeys cage, and he will be the first volunteer to be sent back in time
to stop us.
to stop this movie from being
Oh,
made.
I thought you were going to stop us from recording it. That's a much better aim.
This was the
Thanks.
Check for Traps podcast. Thank you very much, and we apologise. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Ta-ra.
Bye.
Sorry.